I want to talk about this concept of facing your fears because I've noticed that there is this confusion around this subject. Now, I'm a self help and personal development coach and teacher, and I talk about the mind and the concept of the connection between the mind and the body and how to change and how to manifest your dream life with your brain and with your mind. And I've noticed that when people come to me to inquire how they can resolve a problem in their life, and every time I go back into the past or into whatever their problem is to talk about really what happened and how it can be resolved, what they did wrong or what actually happened, some of them shrink. Most of them don't want to talk about the past. This is very typical because in this day and age where there is so much distraction in the world, you have your cell phones, games, internet, social media especially, where there is this gamut of modes of distractions where you can escape your present reality. If it is messed up, you can escape into a game, escape into social media and do whatever it is that you want to do to take away the pain, the imminent pain, which by the way doesn't take it away because you're going to come back to your reality eventually. People try to leave the reality and escape into some whatever to take away whatever they're going through. I've noticed it so much. And I think that's a very big confusion and misunderstanding because, by the way, if you don't look at yourself from the eyes of another person, if you don't look at your problem from the eyes of another person, then you're not going to change. Change only comes when you begin to boldly step into the discomfort zone, and that's where the change comes from. Now, let's talk about this properly. Every experience that we have in our lives, whether it's a good experience or a bad experience, comes from the behaviors and actions that we demonstrate. We have to do something in our lives or have something done to us to have an experience. So experience is, so we see something, we engage, we hear something, taste something, hug someone, have an argument with someone. There has to be something that will create an experience. So every experience we're having, we are co-creators because we're doing something. There's something that we're doing to partake. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not trying to pin whatever you're going through on you, that you caused it. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that there has to be a part that you're playing, whether that part led to it or not. Because you were involved means that there was something that you did to get that experience. For example, you don't know how a chicken pepper soup tastes unless you eat it, right? So you have to eat it. That's the part that you're playing. If you haven't been to Honolulu, you can't experience it if you don't go to Honolulu. When someone tells you, oh, the beach, the beautiful place is there, you have to go there. That's the part you're playing for. So an experience is when we, via the components of our senses, have an interaction with our environment, we're going to create an experience. Now, an experience is going to create what is called a feeling or an emotion. Now, stay with me, I'm going somewhere. That emotion is what is going to remind us of what that experience felt like. So if we feel that way, we remember this is where we got that feeling. Now, that is what we're taking home with us. It's part of that experience we're taking home. Even when we leave that environment, we have the feeling from that environment. Okay, before we have an experience, we have an action. We already cleared that. Now, our actions come from the choices that we make. We wake up in the morning and then whatever we do, we make a choice. If we choose to do something, then we're going to do it. Our actions come from our choices. Nobody just does anything without choosing it. Yes, we can be choosing something over and over again and make that choice very, very automatic that we don't even know when we're choosing it. But it's a choice that we made. Our choices come from our thoughts. Thoughts, you wake up in the morning and you wanted to go somewhere. You have to think about the place you want to go. Review. Think about what you're going to put on to go there and all of that. Now, thoughts lead to choices. Choices leads to actions and behaviors. And actions and behaviors creates your experience, which gives you the emotion. Now, the emotion reminds you what the experience is. In other words, your emotion drives thoughts too. Now, this is a cycle that you and I do every day. Now, pay attention to this. If you keep going on and on with this, the studies have proven that we think 60 to 70,000 thoughts every single day. Now, every thought that we thought, 90% of those thoughts are the same thoughts that we had the day before. This is science. It has been proven. So if you're thinking 90% of the thoughts today of the thoughts that you thought yesterday, that means you also thought 90% of the thoughts that you thought the day before yesterday. If you keep doing something over and over again, it leads you to have a habit. If you keep thinking the same thoughts you thought yesterday, it means that you're going to have the same experience you had yesterday today. So if you do the same thing that you did today, tomorrow, your experience tomorrow is not going to be too far from the experience you have today. Now, think about doing the same thing for 7 days. Your life, your brain, your body stays the same for 7 days. Think about doing it for 1 month. Does this seem like why some people's lives are not changing? Why people get into the same relationships? Does this feel like why you keep making the same mistake, the same money mistakes, the same business mistakes, the same everything? Because you're doing the same thing. You're thinking the same thoughts, making the same choices, doing the same thing over and over again. It's going to keep your life the same. All right. It makes sense that if the thoughts that you're thinking keep running, they'll become a habitual thought. Since thoughts leads to choices, and you keep making the same thoughts, you're going to keep making the same choices, which will become habitual choices. Now, those habitual choices are going to lead to actions, which will keep the cycle going. You now have habitual actions and behaviors. Those habitual actions and behaviors are going to create an experience for you. So those experiences will keep happening day in, day out, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Nothing is changing. That means you're going to keep experiencing the same thing and expecting that this experience is going to happen because that is what you're doing. So for you to change, then it makes sense that you have to begin to think about the kinds of thoughts that you've been thinking about and changing those thoughts, because that's where it starts. Thoughts lead to choices. If you're making automatic choices every day and those choices are coming from your thoughts and those choices are leading you to do certain things that is creating the experience, don't you see now that if you change those choices or if you change the thoughts to new thoughts, those new thoughts are going to produce new choices, which will not affect the rest of the team. Your actions will change. Your behaviors will change. If your behaviors change, your experiences have changed. This sounds very simple to say, but it's not easy to do. But stay with me here. When we talk about facing your fears, this is exactly what we talk about. It doesn't mean that we have to go back and relive our painful moments. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the fact that you have made choices over and over again that comes from the thoughts that you've been thinking over and over again that have become habitual thoughts and choices and actions and behaviors that creates those redundant experiences for you that you don't even know that this is what is happening. If you sit down and think, how have I been behaving? Now, you're taking your power back. You're taking your power back to you. You want to start to think about this intelligently. This is how a powerful person behaves. It's not like you're saying, I'm just going to escape the reality. I'm just going to get on my Facebook, get on my Instagram and begin to do all of those things to take the pain away. Now, if you're doing some of those things that you've been doing, those thoughts and actions and behaviors have become unconscious. You don't even know when you're doing them. That is the point. So whenever you are aware that you are making some unconscious choices, thinking some unconscious thoughts that leads you to behave in unconscious and usual ways that is creating your experiences, when you understand that, it's going to make sense to you that you have to go back and sit down and say, okay, so every day I wake up in the morning, I remember the hurt that my ex gave me, or I remember the hurt that my parents did to me, or I remember the job that I lost. This has been my way of life for the past, whatever, let's just be conservative, for the past 10 years. Some people have had this going on for 20, 30 years. They don't know that this is exactly why they keep having problems in their life. So let's just say 10 years. This has been happening. So it is not forcing you to relive those moments. You are now becoming the scientist of your life. You're behaving like, oh, so if I change this, I'm going to get a new result. What if I begin to think these kinds of thoughts? Now that is strength, because living in unconscious ways sacrifices your free will as a human being. What makes you a human being is that you have free will. You have the free will to do whatever thing you want to do. But now you're not doing what you want to do. Your body has become the mind. You have a thought in your mind. This is where I want to go. But because of the program in your body, you're going a different way, and you can't even stop yourself because you don't even know what to do. But now, with this kind of information, and this is called metacognition. Metacognition is the ability to think about what you've been thinking about, becoming conscious of your unconscious mind, of your unconscious thoughts, behaviors, emotions, and all of those things. The more you do that, the more you're going to have more influence in your life, because now you're going to be more pragmatic, more empirical. Just like a scientist, you're going to have the power to say, okay, so I'm not going to think about my ex today. I'm not going to think about my lost job today. These are the thoughts that I'm going to think. These are the choices I'm going to make today. I'm going to make different choices. I'm going to behave in a different way. Once you start to behave that way, that is not fear. That is not limitation. That is not weakness. That is power. That is power. I tell you, your life will definitely change if you start it one day at a time. Let me do it today and see the kind of experience, see whether something comes up in my life that is so unusual, that is going to encourage me to repeat it tomorrow. If you do it the first day and see it works, you can repeat the process. If you repeat it and you say it works, do it for 7 days, do it for 2 weeks. When you now start noticing certain changes in your life, then you are creating some kind of revolution in your life. So whether you want to use face your fears, or you want to say apply metacognition, or you want to say start being conscious of your unconscious self, or however you want to say it, for change to happen in your life, you must look at the thoughts you've been thinking. You must go back and sit down and say, I haven't been doing well in this place. Own it. Own it to yourself. It's not a negative step. It is not a negative step to identify a problem. Some people think if I talk about my problem, it's negative. That's not it. It's a huge misunderstanding. You have to identify a problem to solve it. I mean, what kind of a doctor would not give you a lab test before giving you a medication, right? So that's it. I mean, there has to be a test run on you first. The problem must be identified. If you identify the problem, you are not being negative. So behave like the doctor, behave like a scientist. Identify it, but don't focus on it. Identify it now. Problem, they say problem discovered is problem almost solved. If you identify it, now you can solve it. That is that kind of approach. So when you hear anybody say face your fears, don't think the person wants to push you back into your past. In fact, that thought is coming from fear, because you're afraid anything that you fear will keep coming. Because if you made a mistake and did something unconsciously, there is 90 or even 100% chance that you are going to repeat it. And if you repeat it, the same thing is going to happen. And when it happens, you're stuck in a cycle. Nothing will change. But when you begin to think pragmatically, when you begin to think actively and proactively, and start, monitoring your thoughts and monitoring the choices you're making by making new thoughts now, and then making new choices, thinking new thoughts and making new choices, and demonstrating actions and behaviors that match that intention. Now you're ready to have a new experience. That experience is going to give you some kind of relief. So this is how to do. So this is what I've been doing wrong. This is what I haven't been doing. That is an experience. Is that emotion alone is an experience that causes you to remember, oh, so I'm feeling this way because I did something different. That is going to wire that information back in your brain and make it stronger that you can do it again. And the more you do it, the more it becomes a habit. The more it becomes a habit, the more you're doing it more. And the more you're going to see evidences in your life to prove that something has changed. And people will begin to talk to you, hey, something is different about you. You are having some experiences that you didn't have before, or you look better, or you're more patient, or you have more money now. You have more business ideas, whatever. There's going to be a physical response from your outer environment to show that whatever you're doing inside your environment is working. Thanks for listening and watching.